Yeah, and I kind of want to argue a almost contrarian point about trust in this episode as well, because there's a lot of things that I see with different social media channels, and even some that I subscribe to and follow, and where it talks about being guarded or don't share too much, don't put yourself out there. That's not powerful or how you get ahead. And I just disagree. I think that vulnerability and humility are things that, especially as you become more senior in your career, really differentiate you and your organization and changes the culture entirely, instead of it being this macho, kind of mentality about not being too open and honest. It's like, at least in my experience, those are some of the things that, led to the best relationships, the best results are when my executives were very sharing of themselves and they admit their mistakes and kind of made room for others to also make mistakes. One of the stats in particular that we were looking at prior to this, there was this research done by Edelman Intelligence, and it said that in a high trust work environment, 79% of employees were likely to innovate more readily and to embrace creativity, to take a chance by speaking up, versus only 40% or less if the organization had a low trust environment. And that's because people fear speaking truth to power. They don't want to look bad. They don't want to sound dumb. And when there's high trust, people know, like, hey, we're all in this together. I don't always need to be right, but people take chances, right? That's when innovation occurs, and that's more important now than ever.
Sure. And to have this we're all in it together mentality, there's pretty much no limit of what you can achieve when that happens, versus the boss is the only one who has the right ideas. I'm not asking for anyone's opinion. Those type of things create this sort of me versus you wedge, or it creates the traditional hierarchical structure where you just need to listen to, whoever's above you in the chain of command and not question them, not ask, not push back when you feel like you need to. And so from that standpoint, some other indicators we've seen of a high trust environment are when people do ask a lot of questions and when that's okay to do so. When there tends to be a lot of chatter in meetings. If you notice
Mhm.
meetings being lively and people are either joking with each other or pushing back on each other or even calling each other out, that tends to mean a high trust environment. Even in the gaps between official meetings segments, what we notice sometimes when we take breaks with clients, if there's chatter and people are stopping at each other's desks when, on the way to the bathroom and chatting about things, if there's a little bit of, busting each other's chops, that tends to indicate a high trust environment. We also notice that, from an innovation standpoint, people are taking these intellectual risks to bring up an idea that they might even think is kind of crazy or off the wall, but they're doing it anyway because they know that they're not going to get punished for doing so, or they're not going to get laughed out of the room. Somebody might, in a good natured way, talk about how that's not going to work or that's crazy. But then someone else might take a shred of that idea and they might turn it into something that's workable.